So once you've created your package, you'll be taken to the IDE, and this is it. This is the IDE. So over on the left here, zoom in a little bit. Zoom's not being too nice. So on the left here we have a package explorer. Okay, and so what that's going to be is all our applications we create are going to be these packages. Okay, and so it's just a file explorer basically. But each package or application we create will show up in this list. For each application we make, it will get added into this list. So, for instance, I just made this Sean Guzzardo test, but also I made stuff and tests earlier today, which also show up, and I have access to those files as well, even though the packages aren't necessarily related. If we look in our actual package, which will start out opened up like this, the view here on the right, what we're looking at is the activity main.xml file. That's under the res folder, under the layout within that. Excuse me. Now, within these folders, there's not a lot of files you're going to change, though they do give you access to a lot of them. In the values here, you have a strings.xml, which we will change, and basically anything in the layout, if we make a new page, it will be a new activity, and that will be in that layout folder, and we will change those as well. Other than that, we won't change pretty much anything in this folder. The Android manifest.xml, if we open that up, zoom out here a little bit, it will open up to this page. It's just your manifest. It's where you dictate exporting features, what your package name is, if you wanted to change anything after your initial setup. There's different tabs down here you can click on, which bring up different activity boxes and things that you can change. The most important one, though, is the permissions tab here. This is to add permissions like Wi-Fi accessibility, contacts, anything your app needs to access on the phone, it needs to ask permission for. So you'd go into the permissions tab here in the Android manifest here. You click Add, Uses Permission, hit OK. It will add a new Uses Permission. On the right here, we have a name and a drop-down menu. Click the drop-down menu and select the permission you want. For each permission, you'll have to create a new uses permission. Alright, we'll just get rid of that since I'm just... we don't want to save changes. Okay, so back to our main here. So, the package explorer is there. Every place you want to see your files, or any place you want to see files that you're going to change, it's basically the res, layout, activity main, values in there, strings, and source. And when you open source, you'll get to your Java location there. Those are the files you want to change. You don't really want to change anything else, or you will get a lot of errors if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So moving into this next view here, this main view, this is the GUI editor for the Eclipse IDE. On the left here, on this palette, we have different widgets and fields, layouts, things like that we can just click and drag in, just like that. When we do that, we have a properties menu that will pop up, and we can edit all the properties in here. You can also right click on it, have a little different view of some properties that we can change. It's also dynamic, so you can change it whenever you'd like. It will line up, depending on where you drag it, with different reference points of the initial layout. The bar up here is going to be how you want to see any previews of your application. This drop-down box here is what you actually want to see in this field as a device. Like I'm on the Nexus 1 right now, but you could go to the Galaxy Nexus, for instance, and it will give you a little different view of what your application will look like on a given phone. This next box here is to change the portrait or landscape mode. If you click the little box, it'll switch it up, or you can click the drop down and do it that way. App theme's a little tricky, and every time I've used it, it's giving me a lot of errors, so I haven't really gone too in depth in that. This main activity here is what we're looking at. If we drop down, we can also get to the Java that way by opening here. And this last guy here is which version of Android we want displayed in our GUI editor. Automatically pick best is usually the best option. So that's kind of the general outline here. There's an outline on the right here of just the hierarchy of our widgets and such within the application. And all the boxes here are pretty normal. Expand here. This is an expanded view. We can shrink it back down. We have a minimized view, which will pull it down. Minimize it. Can bring it back out. So on and so forth. Just bring it back like that. On the top here, we have different ways of getting to different things. The most important being save all. When you hit save all, if you edited anything in the package explorer, it will save whatever you did. So be wary of that. If you wanted to add a new file, new application, you do it there. Most important is these two guys right here. We have the Android SDK Manager and the Android Virtual Device Manager. So what these are, we'll just open it up and show you. The SDK Manager is going to be all the packages of SDKs that you have installed on your machine. I went ahead and installed all of them. It will not start out like this, and it does take a while for it to download, but I think you start out with 4.2.2 and 4.3 already downloaded, which is a good start. And then the one right next to the SDK Manager, I believe, is the Virtual Device Manager, yes. These are your emulators, so you can have different devices as emulators. For instance, I have a Nexus 4 and a Nexus S running two different versions of Android as emulators that I have. Now if you want to create a new emulator, you go to Device Definitions up here. There's a list of phones you can pick from. Pick a phone, hit Create ABD. It'll give you all this information. You can check to it, see if it's right. Usually it is. Hit OK, and it's going to add a new device so you can then emulate it onto. Close out of that. Going over pretty much all your normal stuff. I'm not really sure what Android lint is, but assuming it's some sort of debugger. You can make a new XML file. You can create breakpoints or skip breakpoints. You can debug test. You can run test. Run last tool. When you click run test, it'll ask you to save changes. Just hit yes or no, depending on if you wanted to save changes. And then it's going to tell you to choose a device. And I would suggest, once you do this, not closing down the emulator, since it does take a long time to load. But you would say launch a new Android virtual device. From that list we made earlier, we can select a device, hit OK, and it will load and run our application. Just shortcuts here, creating new Java classes, packages, things like that. So that is the basic outline of the IDE, kind of what you're dealing with. Within the source file, if you want to go to the Java file, this part of the code here is basically what you're going to change. Anything after this line is what you're going to change. I'll send you some more files showing how this line here actually works and what it's doing, and how we're grabbing information from the XML file and transporting to Java, since there's a little more work involved in getting that the Java file and the XML file to actually talk to each other. So that will be coming soon, but for now, that's kind of the introduction to the IDE. Thank you.